Okay, short game, short review. Let's do this. Post Void is a fast-paced roguelike shooter from YCJY Games in Sweden. It also might double as a screening test for photosensitive epilepsy, but thankfully there's an option to help with that. You'll play through a succession of short levels and choose power-ups after each one. The levels will get increasingly longer and more complex with new enemies introduced as you progress. If you die, you go back to the start. A complete run through of the game can take about 10 minutes, though there's easily several hours of fun to have here. I've mentioned before that we usually notice graphics first, so let's start there. I call this style Nickelodeon horror. The palette uses a lot of explosive combinations, and all the visual elements are done in a very harsh style of cartoon. It was reminding me of, real monsters. This television 1.0 aesthetic is well realized. Most of the game has a static-like grain effect, and one of the enemies is a flying telephone set. A lot of the objects are also sprite-based, so we have a style that's very reminiscent of early 90s media and technology, but with a few effects that weren't available at the time, like bloom and distance fog. All in all, it looks great and it has a very strong style. Lighting effects can get overwhelming sometimes, and I wish there were more options to tweak here. It would especially be fun to lower the pixelation and view the enemies in greater detail. They're really interesting designs. In fact, despite the grainy effects, there's a great level of detail on a lot of non-character elements too. Just look at this game over screen. It's very spooky, very analog, very pre-2K, it's very anomalous. The use of this era of graphics and style should also tell you something about the gameplay. This is a twitch shooter. The objective is to get to the end of each level before your health reaches 0. Your health will decrease slowly over time and when you take damage, and it will increase upon a successful kill. It's represented by the idol in your left hand. The HUD is minimal to help you read big rooms with ease. You'll have one weapon, a jump, and a slide. The movement speed is fast, the jump is high, and the slide duration is quite long at about 3 seconds. This is all great for this sort of game. Enemy variety is initially limited but will open up in the later levels. This is good because it means that good play is rewarded with more interesting content. There's a couple of shooter enemies, a couple of swarm enemies, and then a couple of enemies that just exist to slow your progress. Headshots will always kill any enemy and the feedback is great. There's a number of weapons and power-ups to help you out, but because the game is procedurally generated, you can't usually rely on any one playstyle to beat the game. At the end of each level, you'll be offered 3 different weapons or power-ups. You choose one and continue to the next level. These range from powerful, like the Uzi or the exploding bullets, to borderline pointless, like the knife, or increased movement speed while walking backwards. The best designs among these power-ups are the ones that make you feel powerful or open up new strategies. Ricocheting bullets, for instance, it allows you to get creative with your shots, and you can even get away with missing some of them because they bounce back. The worst are abilities that restrict or confuse you. Why would you choose increased movement speed when walking backwards if this is a Twitch game where your survival is dependent on navigating a maze and reacting to complex enemy placements? As it stands, you might choose this power up and never even notice it in-game because you won't normally be walking backwards. I mentioned that levels get increasingly complex as you progress. The first level will always feature long, linear hallways with a few bigger rooms and some little nooks. Later on, levels are going to have elevated floors, branching paths, and lots of smaller rooms. The plus here is that it's fundamentally fun to move around the levels and shoot enemies. The minus is that you can get lost or turned around in the bigger mazes. And remember, every second you spend trying to reorient yourself, your idol is always draining. There is a compass power-up that points towards the exit, but this is kind of useless in a maze full of detours. Here's a couple of fixes that YCJY could consider. You could cease idle drain when the player is standing still, so that we can stop and look around for landmarks. Or we could add a saturation gradient to the walls of the environment, so that the walls at the start of the level are a rich purple, and then they progress into a lighter purple as you approach the end of the level. These ideas may or may not be possible to implement, but in the meantime, I'm sure this will continue to frustrate a lot of players. I mean, just listen to my voice. I'm frustrated. Hell, I'm furious. By and large, this is a really tight gameplay loop that lends itself to short play sessions. There are a couple of issues, but nothing that obstructs the basic fun. Most people will probably only manage short play sessions for a number of reasons. Chiefly because of the headaches, but also because there is only one song on the soundtrack. It is a good song. In fact, it's been playing this whole time. You can even get it on vinyl if you like. But you might get sick of it if you're playing Post Void for hours at a time. But for a game that requires short bursts of intense concentration, perhaps it's better to use one song over and over so as to not distract the player, and in order to help build mental routines. It seems like the right design choice to me. The rest of the sounds are very good. guns are punchy, headshots are squelchy. All the enemies have little barks like the flying telephone with helicopter blades that makes a metallic whirring sound, and you get a loud countdown when your idol is about to run out of fluid. The only place where I felt that audio cues were missing was when my gun magazine was nearing empty. If guns had reliable clip sizes, then I might not need an audio cue and could probably count the bullets as I fire. But as it stands, there's a power-up which increases your clip size by an undefined amount, so you're never quite sure how many bullets you have left. The numbers keep changing. I found this resulted in some negative play patterns. Even when I'd upgraded my clip size, I would still obsessively reload after every encounter. That often meant that I was rushing into the next room before the animation had even completed. Boom, dead. Start again. This is the sort of problem that players can probably outsmart with good strategy. But for the rest of us meatheads, it seems like an opportunity for audio cues to provide crucial information in the player that the HUD won't. Apart from this, the audio is working really well. I never noticed that I was hearing a sound which originated from something I couldn't see. All the cues and barks had very high relevancy. This is where I might talk about the story, but there isn't much to tell. There's a cutscene in the tutorial that sets things up, and it seems very allegorical. As you play the game, you might notice details about the world. We're told that the main character has a headache and he wants to plant a flower. In order to do this, he has to travel through Post-Void. All the levels look like apartment buildings, but none of them seem to be traditionally used for accommodation. We get a general sense of a world in technological or spiritual collapse. The writing and tone in general made me curious to play other games by this developer. I like the hyper-reality existential horror stuff. It makes me feel funny. The most fun you can have with this game is chaining headshots together and beating your high score. If it sounds like this might be your sort of thing, then at $4.50 it's definitely worth trying out. I've kept this one installed for about a year now, and I've always come back to it because I want to feel that rush again. Now that I've done this video, I think I'll be keeping an eye on YCJY Games. At the moment they're working on a driving adventure game called Keep Driving, so stay tuned for more on that. Alright, I'll give you guys a short channel update while you're here. Obviously, it's been a while since my last update, my last video. This channel started for me as like a COVID project, but nowadays I'm back at work, I'm back at university. My output is quite slow as I figure out what kind of content I want to do going forward. I'm very serious about continuing this channel. It's been a lot of fun for me to talk to everyone in the comments, and I appreciate the experiences I've had so far. In terms of future content, I've always wanted to branch out into Magic the Gathering videos, so I'll try that out next and we can see how it goes. I'm always open to requests as well. I know people want me to look at the new Rainworld expansion, which has me very excited, and a longtime viewer has recommended the Buffy game on PS2 for a video. Onwards and upwards, my friends, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.